Burbies. Here we are back again with another edition of Alliance on the Move. And we're just so excited that you're letting us into your homes this Saturday evening. We've got a wonderful program set up for you. I'm happy to have with us this evening Dr. Rohan Somar. Now, Dr. Somar is a regular part of the AFC family and brings us some really pertinent information that we need. And we also have with us long-standing David Patterson, Member of Parliament. So we're going to be talking a bit about GCOM, but most importantly, I want to welcome the celebrity tonight. Dr. Somar, with monkeypox and everything going on, I am just so grateful to have you on this program. Thank you very much for joining us, and how are you doing?
Thank you, Kathy. Believe me, I'm no celebrity. I'm just a regular guy. All's fine. We're enjoying some good weather in New Jersey these days. And I'm glad to join you guys again to talk about some stuff that's still prevalent in our communities and likely will continue to be so for the short run and the intermediate and long run as it is.
Right. So, Doc, this is an important discussion we're going to be having this evening. Because, of course, you would know that the first case of monkeypox was reported in the media by the Minister of Health in Guyana this week.
Yeah.
And really, I want us to backtrack a little bit before we get to monkeypox, because everybody's worried. They want to know what they need to do to protect themselves. But I think it would be good for us to start with an update with where we are with COVID right now. Can you provide that information to us?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we're starting off. In addition to give an update and talk about COVID and monkeypox, I want to touch also on polio. We're seeing a resurgence in polio in different parts of the planet, including New York. So hopefully we'll get some of that information out. Now, with COVID, I know there is a lot of tiredness, weariness around COVID and COVID infection, as it were. But very important for us to all realize that COVID still is very prevalent in the planet. All countries are still having a pandemic level of incidence and prevalence of this disease, whether it be Europe, North America, South America, China, India. In fact, China is seeing a massive resurgence of different strains, causing tectonic disruption in their economy, lockdowns, and so on. Guyana is no different. The COVID is still spreading, and it's spreading rapidly. We're dealing with different waves and different strains of mutation. Currently, we're dealing with BA4 and BA5. There are several mutation and varieties out there. The good thing and good news and bad news about this particular strain is one, it is very highly infectious, meaning someone can be having contracted the virus and not know it, not being symptomatic, and it can be easily spread to someone next to you, in your home, in an public environment, or what have you. And so all of us need to maintain our diligence in preventing COVID. Now, having said that, it is likely that every one of us on the planet will get exposed to this virus. At this stage of the game, we're in a better place than where we were when COVID was first started, with its different strains that precedes the current strain, in that they were infectious, but they were very deadly, causing massive amount of deaths and hospitalization and so on. This particular strain, the good news is, if you've been vaccinated and get your booster, likely you will suffer a mild to moderate symptoms, a bad cold, runny nose, myalgia, some fever, headaches, and a cough. And again, if you're vaccinated and boosted, that's usually the course. However, if you have not been vaccinated or got your boosters with effective vaccines, you're likely going to have serious problem with this COVID infection still. especially if you have risk factors such as diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, any kind of chronic condition, and you're not vaccinated, COVID can be very serious that will land you in the hospital and possibly be on a ventilator. So the precaution is still, and I do it every day. I wear my mask when I'm out in public, in mass gathering, or indoors with unknown individuals that you're not in your community who you know are vaccinated and boosted, if you will. All that will go to, while you maybe, if you get exposed to the disease, you're not going to suffer serious harm from it. Now, having said that, if we do all that, the other more important, very important reason why you do not want to get this disease, even though you may suffer mild symptoms, is we're seeing a little really explosion of chronic sequela we call long COVID. It can be long, it can be intermittent, it can be short COVID. Folks are at a rapid clip developing chronic complications. These can range from neurological problems such as concentration, anxiety, depression, ability with memories, and a whole host of psychiatric issues as well. Chronic coughing, chronic fatigue, energy, you just feel like you're not getting your energy level. And this can go on for months, if not years. And we'll start seeing massive cases with these chronic disease condition that are post-COVID. So it's critically important. While we've been all dealing with this for 2.5, 3 years now, the fatigue factor is certainly there. But please keep your guards up, wear your mask, and more importantly, get vaccinated if you're not been vaccinated. And if you have been vaccinated, make sure you get your booster. Now, Guyana, I think now has access to the most effective vaccines we have on the planet, which are the mRNA vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna. I know the Minister of Health has access to the Pfizer vaccine. So if you spread the word, you and your neighbors, your family, get your updated with your vaccines. Now, there are going to be new vaccines, a variety coming in the future to cover the different or the upcoming strains. In
Mhm.
fact, in the U.S., we're looking at a new vaccine to cover new strains this fall. Guyana is probably no different either. So please, the take-home message: if you haven't been boosted, vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you've been vaccinated, get your booster and continue with your surveillance to protect yourself from getting exposed.
Mhm. Very, very useful information because I think here in Guyana, we started to be very lax. A lot of people, can't be bothered to wear the masks. Sometimes you go in the store and this before they were spraying and sanitizing.
Mm.
So thank you for raising how important it is. And so we want to say to viewers, first of all, get your vaccine if you've never had it. Second of all, get your booster. And as Doc said, you have the Pfizer booster that you can request at the several Ministry of Health locations that are still
Yeah.
doing vaccinations and boosters. And then wear your mask. And if you're going into a store and they don't ask you about sanitizing and you see that spray, you say to them, you take responsibility for your own health. Now, Doc, there's
Absolutely.
been this.
Actually,
Yes, David.
can I ask Doc? I have two questions. Doc,
Sure.
on that. There initially there was a great vaccine hesitancy,
Mhm.
and it was based on the uncertainty that persons would have had of what the vaccine does to you, etc. And there's all these rumors that you're putting in microchips and live microbodies. I'm sure you heard them.
Yeah.
Now that we've been vaccinating the world for 2.5 years, I think it'd be good if you could explain if you ever came across any sort of adverse effects and those things like that. So those persons who were hesitant before because of these rumors, that you can abate their they're concerned. Then secondly, on the question of boosters, how often would you recommend to somebody if I'm boosted when it came out early on February? Should
Okay.
I take another booster, or that is it? You know what I mean? So I think
Excellent.
those are my
Yeah.
two questions.
Excellent questions. First, on the vaccines. The vaccines that are currently out and have been shown to be effective are the mRNA vaccine from Pfizer, Moderna. Johnson & Johnson pulled its product off the line, as I would say, similar to all of the Chinese vaccine that's out there. Novavax, another company, has a new vaccine, a DNA vaccine. Now, here's the key. The vaccines that are effective against COVID, the mRNA, which I first line, have been very effective and very safe. We have vaccinated billions of people throughout the planet with these vaccines. The idea of it having a microchip or cause all
Change your
kinds of
DNA and those things like that.
crazy, or change your DNA, or cause increased pregnancy or psychiatric problems, are
Or
all
impotence.
impotence,
Yeah.
and whatever, are all nonsense, unfounded, misinformation, disinformation, created from different sectors of and all propaganda. We can tell you scientifically, and the studies have shown this out throughout the history of these vaccines, of their safety profile. Yes, the minor things you're going to see when you get these vaccines are the things that demonstrate that your body is reacting and building the antibodies to the vaccine, meaning you may get a little headache, a little fever, sore arms, some myalgias. That's all good, because when that happens, it's telling you that your body is reacting to the vaccine and building its immunity. There is no demonstrated also long-term studies of any long-term side effects from the vaccines. Most of the adverse reaction you're going to get are going to be immediate the next day or so, especially 12 hours with the mRNA vaccine. You'll get some myalgias or headaches and what have you. So all this talk or information or disinformation about crazy stuff that vaccine cause is hoax, debunked, rumors, innuendos, nothing based on scientific facts or in any reality of the vaccines. Your second question is, when do you get your booster? If you have not gotten the booster in this calendar year, January to now, and you've gotten boosted prior last year, it's recommended you get a booster. There's another variety of boosters coming out in the fall in the US. You don't need to wait for that if you haven't gotten the booster this year, because again, the BA.5 variant is very prevalent in the communities in North America, South America, Guyana, no difference. That's the strain that's prevailing out there. And the boosters, especially from Pfizer and Moderna, covers that strain, including the previous strain, the strain that precedes it, BA.1 and 2. So the Omicron variant is covered by the vaccine booster that's out there right now with Pfizer and Moderna.
So generally, doc, it's about like once a year until advised.
I definitely think we are at that stage with the history of these vaccines and the effectiveness in terms of duration that it wouldn't be surprised that we will be getting vaccinated, similar to what it's happened with the flu virus. You get your vaccine every a year, and that tries to pick up the different strain that may be prevalent and one to come. That we're going to be seeing that same type of vaccination regimen in the short future, because coronavirus is not going away. It's here to stay. It's now for us as humanoids be able to deal with it and deal with its complication and manage its progression to severe disease. In our short lifespan, I don't see coronaviruses disappearing from the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good information. And David, thanks for those questions. Doc, The other thing that we are worried about now is monkeypox.
Mm-hmm.
It seems almost that, it's like we're not stopping. Every couple of months, we can expect something else. So we had our first case of monkeypox that the Minister of Health announced. And what was a little disturbing was they said that the person hadn't actually traveled or been near to anyone that traveled. So I know the Ministry of Health is checking on that.
Yeah,
But tell us a bit about monkeypox, and
sure.
as citizens, what do we need to be doing to protect ourselves?
Got it. Yes, to your point, it doesn't. It seems like it never stops. As soon as we're dealing with one, or it seems that we got our arms around one infectious disease that's spreading throughout the planet, another one springs up. So, before just a little background on monkeypox, what it is, it's a virus. It's similar to smallpox, which we had a very effective program of almost eradicating smallpox from the planet. And that went on up until the 90s or so. And because of that similarity and that robust vaccination program for smallpox, monkeypox, so like it's like think of it as a sister of smallpox, if you will. So like went back into its native environment, and it was primarily endemic in Western and Eastern, Western and Africa, areas that's close to the rainforest. And its harbor, it's commonly housed in rodents, squirrels in those areas. Interestingly, not in primates. Poor monkey got a bad rap for being this virus called monkeypox, not spread by monkeys.
Wow.
So, but it was endemic in Western Africa per se. And then in the last year or so, it somehow got out of its native environment, start spreading throughout the planet, Europe, United States, very, very spreading rapidly in the United States and all parts of the world. Right now, as of today, um, there's over 50,000 cases identified on the planet.
Wow.
The US alone has about 17,500, and it's spreading rapidly. I'll talk about how it's spreading, what are the signs and symptoms, and what can be done to protect yourself from some of the treatment. Um, Going back a few months ago, this virus was pretty much dormant and not affecting humanoids, human beings per se. But in a matter of 3 or 4 months, we've seen it go from one or two to about 50,000. So it's spreading at a very rapid clip, and it's it's a virus, like other virus. It'll cause fever, headache, muscle pains, and so on. And then after that, you start getting this rash. And the rash is, you've seen the pictures of them. They're like little bumps that can get to progress to different stages. Not from just a little bump, it can be become a painful bump, a bump filled with fluids, and so on. And then it can spread. It'll spread usually, typically in moist areas of the body, but it'll spread from head to toe, including the palms and the soles. And it's a very painful experience for folks who are experiencing the rash. And when the rash resolves after about 2 weeks or so, it leaves a mark, a crustacean mark, almost like Swiss cheese on your skin. So you get a long-term stigmata of it. Now, how is it spread?
Unfortunately, Doc, his thing froze.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
quite
can.
interesting conversations he's having there. Cathy. First, monkeypox. I,
Hmm.
I always assumed it was a monkey.
Me too.
Yeah, so there you go. And it's very, very, very interesting. 2 weeks. I didn't realize it was so long. Actually,
Hmm.
I thought it was from what I'm saying. I thought you would have contracted monkeypox and leaves within a couple of days. Like a flu.
Hmm.
2 weeks, and it looks incredibly
Painful. Yep.
painful, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And the stigma around it, So I'm hopeful you and Doc is on because immediately, I mean, I have several questions I would like him to
Yeah.
address. One of them would be we were inoculated against things like
Ah,
chicken.
Hang on,
Dr.
hang on.
Scott.
Are we
Yes,
on?
yes, you're
Yeah,
back.
great to have
Okay,
you back,
good,
Doc.
good. Sorry, it looks like I started, found myself talking, but the picture went out. So
Yes.
we're back on.
Mhm.
Good.
Okay, so I was at how does it spread?
Hmm.
Essentially, it spreads primarily by body fluid contact for someone who is exposed to the monkeypox or has the disease. And this includes all body fluids, saliva, blood, any type of secretions. If you are in contact with someone who has the virus and you're in those exposed to that body fluid, whether it be the rash on the skin itself, close contact, intimate contact with someone who's exposed to it or who has the virus, this could include kissing, hugging, prolonged, sexual activities, unprotected, it will spread. You're at risk of contaminating the disease. We've seen it spread very rapidly in a particular community, meaning in the, I don't want to create any stigmata here, but the reality is in New York, we're seeing massive spreading again with the gay community, especially male on male intimate relationship
Hmm.
and so on at all aspect. And not only do you get that intimate body fluid spread, think about exposure to someone who is not in that high risk category. If someone is exposed to the bedding, the sheets, clothes that a person may have, or a towel, so you don't want to share, that may have has the virus, you can spread it. In fact, we've seen cases in the U.S. kids. We've seen a couple of kids exposed, and naturally, they're not of the high risk category, but likely came in contact with a clothes or a material used by someone who has the disease. So, with that information, it's critically important that we all practice good hygiene. Wash your hands as frequent as you can. Um, uh, uh, Precautions against, if you're in a high risk group, we'll talk about treatment of vaccines later on. You want to get yourself a vaccine and protect yourself. So that's how it's spread. The disease itself, again, ranges from just a viral syndrome, headache, fever, chills, but then this rash appears and a lot of lymph node swelling and lumps. I call it lumps, bumps, and fevers. Expect that, if you will, as it goes by. Now, the good thing with all this, even though it's as miserable as a Dickens as I just described, it is not as deadly as most other viruses. Likely, it'll run its 2-week course. You'll be miserable. You'll be infectious. You can cause someone to have it, but likely will not kill you. We have seen only a handful of deaths throughout this so far of 50,000 infection throughout the planet. So likely you won't die, but you'll be miserable and it'll continue to spread in your community. That will cause disruption in the economy and your livelihoods and everybody else around you. Now, what can you do to protect yourself against it? There are 2 vaccines out there in the planet and 1 antivirals. I don't think Guyana has, I know the Minister of Health has requested vaccine supplies. These vaccines, one of them is same vaccine that we used for smallpox in the past. Now, they put a lot of extra storage in cold storage, and they're trying to thaw them out right now. And there's another vaccine that's specific for the monkeypox, if you're able to have your access to it, and you're one of these high risk group, will protect you. And the vaccine works if you're exposed group, for example, a healthcare worker in your hospitals and so on who are taking care of patients, they're high risk of being exposed by contact. You would want to make sure they're protected, if you will, from not only contracting the disease but spreading it. And then there's also an antiviral drug that's out there very limited supply, of course. That's if you have access to it and you've been exposed, you can be used to treat yourself. Now, also things that are very important to realize, especially in Guyana, the rainforest. Brazil has a high, good number of cases, and the communities are close to the rainforest area, similar to in Africa, where the animals that are carriers of the disease, rodents, squirrels, rats, and other animals we're not sure of, wild animals that folks may slaughter for gaming. You want to make sure if you're in that realm of food procurement, make sure the meat or the food, whatever you're cooking, is well cooked, and none of this half cooked meat, if you will, goes a long way to prevent contamination of it as it moves forward. Question, David, you had a couple
David,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, no. So, as you went on, I had several questions, but let me first touch on one of the comments that you made, Doc. Because just last evening, I was out with some friends, and somebody referred to monkeypox as a gay, men virus. So there is a perception, and that like initially, like when AIDS started, there's only one community can get it. So I like you to just explain to everyone that anyone can get it. It's just a question of this is the most vulnerable group at the moment. Don't say things because you're not part of the group. And secondly, don't be stigmatized that if you get it, that means that you're gay. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Again, the spread of this is not only through intimate sexual contact with gay folks. It's spread with contact with any bodily fluid. If someone is infected and you kiss someone, or there's a long intimate hug, or by whatever means you are exposed to these lesions, you'll get it. As I mentioned also, clothing that's contaminated, you come in contact with, your risk to get it. So it is not a primarily gay person's disease. It does spread by intimate contact, especially with male on male relationship. We've seen that, but it's not the only means of spreading. And again, if you contract the disease, visibly it looks horrible, and it does not mean that you are gay because you contracted COVID. We've seen kids monkeypox. We've seen kids infected with it, and all because of cross contamination in the community. So there ought to be no stigma about anyone who's contracted the disease, and or it be limited to the gay population per se. It's a viral infection that's spread by human contact with human secretions.
Thanks, Doc. And I really wanted that cleared up because this was a discussion I had just last evening, and you'll be amazed how intelligent people interpret the facts that you have. You know what I mean? So
and bringing one more point, when I say bodily fluids, this includes droplets. It's not spread airborne, but if you are in close contact, proximity to someone, and you're having a robust conversation, and they may be singing or screaming, and that person is infected, those droplets, if they're in your 3 feet zone or so, could potentially be a source. Again, another reason why if I'm in public, I wear a mask.
Yeah.
Again, hand cleaning and sanitizing of your local environment as much as you can protects you from getting contaminated.
All right. Second question, Doc. Sorry to be the one to have to be.
Oh, no, please.
No, this is good, David. Please go ahead.
So schools. So the Minister of Education has said it out that there's no need to close schools because of the very first outbreak of monkeypox. And I do think that there's nothing wrong with that. But for you have 17,500 cases. We have 1 case in Guyana. What is the thinking about monkeypox in school age kids, and what was the current thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the notion of we don't need to close schools or close work environments or and so on with the advent of monkeypox in the community. Again, um, if someone's contracting or has the disease, it'll present itself first with a viral syndrome, and then the lumps and bumps, the rashes, and the lymph node swelling. If we get those, naturally you're going to get to your healthcare provider to get cared for and get tested and screened. Um, with school children and which who are the younger, healthier part of the population, their exposure literally are going to be contamination with clothing as such with someone else who has the disease, or come in close contact with bodily secretions with someone. So I don't see a need for again closing schools or work environment and so on. Again, the precaution all of us need to take is simply that blood and body fluid precautions and close air droplet precaution. I worry about schools mostly with COVID spread versus a monkeypox scenario.
Mhm.
And Kathy, my last question, Doc, chicken pox and those sort of, we would call them childhood diseases, but they're all the pox related. It is said that if you get chicken pox once, you build the immunity to it in the future. And those things, mumps, measles, and those things. Is monkeypox one of those things that if you get it once, your chances of getting it again after you've recovered, is that a similar sort of scenario with this here?
Our track record and history of providing a definitive answer to that question is short, simply because monkeypox hasn't infected the humanoids for a prolonged period of time, for a couple of decades in very small handful numbers. Now we're seeing massive spread. If you got monkeypox, the question is, are you immune for life? Likely so. Similar to if you were to have the other viruses that don't mutate. And so if your body sees it, it dealt with it, likely you'll be protected. Again, because it doesn't mutate. If it mutates, like the coronavirus that we talked about, you're going to get exposed. You're going to be susceptible to the next strain to come, per se. So I wouldn't. Well, we haven't seen cases where there've been recurrent infection of monkeypox from a particular individual.
So,
Thank you,
Doc.
Doc.
So, Doc. Sorry, David.
No. That's my questions.
So, Doc, in the similar vein to David's last question, are persons that were, it seems as though the generation, which would have been, of course, us speaking here, that were vaccinated for smallpox, we're hearing information that we are actually, we may have some immunity to monkeypox because we received the smallpox vaccine as children. So, two questions. Is that information correct? And then, although smallpox has been eradicated in many countries, do you see countries now starting to vaccinate, give this generation the smallpox vaccination, not so much for smallpox, but for things like monkeypox?
Excellent question. To your first one, if we're vaccinated against smallpox, do we have protection against monkeypox? The answer is yes. The answer is an unequivocal yes. Simply because monkeypox, simple, easy way to remember, think of it as a sister of smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
They're related and they're from the same family, the same lineage. It's just that they're not identical. And so when smallpox vaccine was very robust in the 60s, the 70s, and so on, monkeypox went back into its native states in the animals that that were carriers, and that didn't become a problem. Now that smallpox has been pretty much eradicated. There's still some pockets probably. Monkeypox is resurging simply because that immunity, that robust, active vaccination stopped, if you will. Um, so that's there, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing it just resurging, if you will. So if we have vaccination against smallpox, the answer is yes. You got some protection, not total protection. The population, though, of folks who have the vaccine against smallpox, and who are immunocompromised for whatever reason, whether it be chronic medical condition cause you immunocompromised, you are more susceptible to not only monkeypox but any other infection, if you will. So again, on vaccines now, there are two vaccines that are available. The one that we use for smallpox, they're from strategic stockpile, different countries stored excesses. They've been in deep storage for decades, and now they're starting to thaw those out, as I mentioned before, and so there are limited supplies. So what the strategy is that's being used, especially in New York, where you have a high penetration, we're trying to get those vaccines to the group that's high risk, the population that we mentioned before, who may have been exposed to someone in smallpox. For example, healthcare workers in the front line, emergency departments, public health folks who may be come in contact with a patient with this disease. And then we have the FDA has another vaccine. I'm going to mess up the name. Genos, it's called. That's specifically for monkeypox. Again, it's in limited supply at this stage. Likely, supply and production is going to rev up as demand's going to be escalating. And then there's an antiviral also. Again, in limited supply because this hasn't been a problem for other than the last 4 months. So there are treatments, vaccines, both for post-exposure and pre-exposure for high-risk groups, as well as an antiviral if you're able to have access to.
Doc, do we still vaccinate for smallpox in Guyana?
I
Do you know?
I don't think so because I mean up until the 80s, late 80s or early 90s, smallpox, quote unquote, was thought to have been eradicated. The most recent, last country that they literally hunt that down was some regions in India, and we haven't seen any smallpox resurgence since then. We're seeing a resurge or increased incidence of the sister of smallpox, monkeypox.
Right, right, right.
It's like, you know what I mean? It's like one of those bad serial movies, you know what I mean? And, like airplane one, airplane two, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
There you go.
it's
that's Doc. Yes.
yeah.
Any other questions on
No,
monkeypox?
no.
So the take-home message is alert, be aware of how you potentially can contract the disease, and take all your precautions of not getting exposed to someone who may have it, and simple personal hygiene, hand washing, again, staying away from folks who may have it, and not to be stigmatized any individual or groups who has disease or who may be at risk of it. There's definitely vaccines that help manage it and prevent spreading, and a tablet that could help if you're able to have access to it.
Doc, just as sorry, Kathy.
No, go ahead, David.
So if someone contracts it, you would recommend they just go to your regular GP for thing, or does he or she goes to a special
In Guyana, I'm not sure of the access points for surveillance and care of monkeypox. I would think the major institutions, Georgetown and so on, would have programs and processes to, if someone presents with a viral illness and they have the suspicion of this could be monkeypox, which would mean you get the rash and the lumps, the adenopathy is called, which is a little unique with viral infections for monkeypox. You get tested, and they will test the lesion. It's a PCR test. We get the results back within 2 or 3 days, if you will. And then you start the treatment or the surveillance of not only that individual, but the community that individual is in to protect them or get them the care that they may need, other
Mhm.
vaccines or antivirals.
I was more trying to get to, because remember this is going out to the public, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody in Berbice, in, I don't know, back in Springlands or something like that. I was trying to get, and for myself, so somebody in Springlands, not close to the New Amsterdam Hospital, not close to the Georgetown Hospital, not close to the infectious center in Liliendal, sees a sign, suspects um, he or she has contracted monkeypox because of all the things you do. Do they now isolate themselves, or do they go to the regular GP? Do they just hire a car and come straight down to the one of the primary care institutes? You know what I mean? So I was just trying to see how you would, how
Yeah,
what
and
recommendation.
that's an excellent question. It's a very pragmatic one. It's a real one. For example, in the United States, if someone is suspected of having the disease or think they may have gotten it, all our ERs are prepared to do an intake process, identify them, and so on, and to make sure the diagnosis is real. And then we'll get them back into the community for self isolation for 14 days and treatment if possible. In Guyana, my sense would be this most sensible thing to do. If you think you have the disease, I would stay in place, if you will. Call your local clinic, your local health department, see if they have the procedures in place to do the intake and do the swabbing and the testing. That's the first thing that to be done. And
Right.
as you do that, sterilize your entire area, all the beddings and so on in your home. Folks who may be there, and you just keep surveillance of your immediate close contacts, if you will, and call out to your local clinic or health department. I think those are more prevalent in different communities as opposed to regional centers, whether it be New Amsterdam, Linden, or Georgetown. That information, the health department should have a process where that information is coordinated and testing can occur to those individuals. You don't need a special testing environment, a special testing environment, negative pressure, or anything like that. All you need is a closed room. The practitioner needs to be fully gowned with PPE from head to toe so they don't get contaminated, if you will, including a mask, face shield, gloves, obviously, and they do the testing. And once the testing that's done, the patient can be back in his or her community in isolation up until if the fever breaks, which is going to take fever, myalgia, viral syndrome, may take a couple of days, then the rash will appear. And if the rash appears, it will likely runs its course for about total 2 weeks or so. And by that time, you'll see the rash start scaling off or dry
Mhm.
up, if you will.
Mhm.
You're not infectious at that point.
Okay.
Thank
Doc,
you. That's
so
exactly what I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, two things. I think I heard a couple days ago, at least for people in Georgetown, that the public hospital, the same location where they were dealing with testing for COVID, I think they're beginning to incorporate now facilities for monkeypox. So I think that a few of the locations that they know that our viewers would know
Yeah.
would have been dealing with COVID, at least that would be a place to start checking. But we mentioned the word treatment, and it suddenly dawned on me we didn't really look at that.
Mhm.
To share, if unfortunately, you do contract it, what is the treatment like for
And
monkeypox?
you don't have access to these
Yeah.
drugs and things that you have over there in
Yes,
the States
especially as you say, since the vaccine is going to be
in limited supply.
scarce and limited all
Right.
over the world, not only in Guyana. So,
Right.
what does one?
In the
How does
ideal
that go?
world, absolutely. In the ideal world, if you identify an individual or community that's at risk, we have the vaccine for pre-exposure, protects them from getting it. And if they've been exposed and you know they're positive for it. We have the vaccine is also works for post exposure. In
Okay.
addition to that, we have access to an antiviral tablet, Topax it's called. Again, it's in very limited supply. Likely in Guyana today, probably don't have any of those three modality of treatment. I know the minister has request supplies of the vaccine for monkeypox. Supply being limited as it is, probably not going to get any in the short run. So what do? First, if you think you have the disease and you got tested and you confirm you have the disease, without those treatment, as I mentioned, only thing you can do is one, isolate yourself and let the virus runs its course. It's going to run a miserable course of about 2 weeks or so. You want to make sure that you have good, proper hygiene, good nutrition, good hydration to weather the storm of this virus. It's going to take a toll on your body, especially if you have other chronic medical condition, diabetes, heart disease, lung disease. Those chronic conditions can spring up on you because your body is spending energy fighting this virus. So you got to be extremely careful, again, try not to get it. And if you get it in Guyana right now, there's not much treatment that's available to you other than your symptomatic treatment for a viral syndrome per se.
So, Doc, does that mean then, when you say the symptomatic treatment, does that mean that if you get headaches and pains around the body, that a regular over-the-counter Tylenol, paracetamol, and then for the bumps, is there some cream or what do you? And I'm asking this because, in Guyana, we love to create our own
Own
remedies.
remedies, yeah.
Some are very, very good,
Yeah.
but then some of them you hear of are just way off the beaten track. So how we handle that part?
Excellent question. The first part, the fever, the headache, the muscle pains, again, fluid hydration. And if you need to take some pain medicine, you want to take some anti-inflammatory pain medicine. Tylenol will help with the pain, the fever, and the headache. But something like Motrin or which are more of the anti-inflammatory, will help with the inflammatory process and help you mitigate the pain and inflammation that the virus will cause. In terms of the rash itself, again, they're going to range from flat to raised to pockets with fluid in them, and sometimes blisters. Now, those can be very painful.
Yeah.
In fact, they are very painful from all the reports. And again, pain medicine that you can have, if the regular Tylenol or Motrin is not working, your healthcare provider may want to give you something stronger because it's miserable. You can lose sleep and all that stuff. In terms of creams, the rash area is going to be very, very dry. So your local cream that helps keep the skin moist, actually coconut oil works very well for this.
Coconut oil?
Yeah, on your
Good.
skin.
Good.
We grew
Yeah.
up with it used to fall through my side and so on.
Right.
Because it's a good moisturizer of the skin, if you will. There's no, other concoction that you can think. You want to keep your skin smooth, soft as much as possible. That helps the itching as well as the dryness. So,
All right.
symptomatic care primarily for
Good.
rashes, dry skin, fever, headache, myalgia.
I think Doc wants to say it's a bit on polio. With time is running. Huh?
Yes. I think this has
Okay,
been an
yeah.
interesting discussion. But Doc, tell us about the
Yes,
whole
polio.
polio.
Again, similar to we're on that mode of we just dealt with one, we just dealt with two. There's another one. What else to come? We're seeing a case in polio that is in New York City of the severe form of polio, paralytic polio. And again, like with other viruses, polio, the key is vaccination. Guyana has been, as well as all other countries on the planet, vaccinating our kids and adults against polio in the form. It's a simple, the oral. Remember, you guys did the 3 oral doses.
Yeah.
That if you have that, you have great immunity against polio. The problem is not every parent in every part of the planet is vaccinating their kids against polio. So I hope my message to polio for polio prevention in Guyana is make sure your kids, your family's kids, every person that you know around gets the polio vaccine because you do not want to get the polio virus. It can range from mild disease to the severe form paralytic polio. Now, this case that I mentioned in New York City, Rockland County, is just one case that's been identified. The milder form of the cases could be just like a viral infection. And in fact, the troublesome thing we're seeing in New York, they're testing the sewer system, the wastewater, and we're finding rampant evidence of polio in the community because of the wastewater, the fecal feces and urine that it's excreted through the body. It's in the sewer system. And so if you find it in the sewer system, you know it's in the community. So the one case is just that one case, means there's probably thousands of cases in the community. And the unfortunate thing is in New York, in that county that one case is found, only about 58% of the folks are vaccinated, took the vaccine against polio. So the message is for folks back home in Guyana, make sure everyone around you gets their vaccine or vaccine.
Doc, first question is always, I think so. Age. I myself, yourself, Kathy, we got the oral vaccine when we were school kids, I think, even pre-adolescents, and those things like that.
Yeah.
Is there any issue if you take it, if somebody is I'm talking about them 8, 9, 10, haven't been vaccinated, they listening to this program here, and the parents said, the kid hasn't been vaccinated, let me carry him or her down to our local health clinic. Okay, is there any challenges to that because you didn't take it as a toddler?
As a child.
No, okay, excellent question. If like we all did as when we were kids, we got our oral polio vaccine. It's effective. 99%. We're protected. Done. Now, if a child has not been vaccinated against polio or didn't get the full series, make sure they get the full series. Okay. 2, if those of us who have been vaccinated, for whatever reason, becomes immunocompromised, and we got exposed to this, it's recommended that we get a 4th dose. Period. That will get our it's sort of like a booster. We'll get our immunity up to speed, if you will. In fact, in the communities that in New York City, around in surrounding areas, we are looking at healthcare workers, guys like myself, who runs an emergency room right outside New York City. The fact that we know there's a high penetration of folks who may be asymptomatic in New York City, comes out to the suburbs or what have you, they could be exposed. And we as healthcare worker in the front lines, there is a suggestion of giving us that updated 4th dose, if you will, just as a precaution, because there is no a downside or massive side effects from the oral vaccine, from the vaccine.
No matter what age. No matter what age.
Yes, absolutely. There's a series where the kids get. There's a series where the kids get the 3 a different time. I think it's month 2, 4, and 12 or something like that. I don't remember the exact sequence, but that's well established.
Right. So the takeout from what you're saying here, Doc, if I could say to our viewers, is that if a kid hasn't been vaccinated for the polio, there is nothing detrimental, no matter how old they are, to go and take the 3.
Absolutely.
And it will be equally effective as previous.
Exactly. If you haven't been vaccinated or being under vaccinated, meaning they may have gotten 1 dose and didn't go back to get the 2nd or 3rd dose.
Correct.
Please make sure you get everyone in your community vaccine get the full series of vaccine against polio. It's rearing its head and it's spreading.
Last question from me, Kathy, and then I'm finished.
Yes, go ahead. No, we like your questions, David.
Transmission. When you spoke about corona, you spoke quite well about detail of that, and in monkeypox. I'm sure the viewers here um, will be probably saying, well, how do you catch polio? Because you explain about that, and then you also explain about it when you test the sewage and those things like that. So remember, Tao, that we're speaking to plebs just like me. So transmission of polio. Um,
Uh, Excellent question. Like any viruses, polio gets transmitted not as rapidly respiratory wise, mostly body fluid. We see it in folks who have it if you're contaminated with their body fluids, blood, stool, urine. That's one of the most quickest way it's spread. And that's why we're seeing it in sewer system water. So again, someone you do not want to come in contact with anyone's secretions or stool or urine per se with polio. Those are the most common. Yeah, respiratory, massive droplets, close contact, perhaps, but not a main route of contamination with polio.
Great, great.
Yeah.
That's
The
good to
good
know.
thing again though with polio, vaccines work 99%.
and that's readily available
Yeah,
thing, like it's, yeah. So
exactly.
every healthcare, almost every healthcare clinic
Mhm.
or center in Guyana will have or should have a dose
Should have, yeah.
right now.
Especially school age children.
Right.
It's probably mandatory for a series that someone's vaccinated against polio before they start school.
Mm-hmm.
Should be,
Mm-hmm.
if not.
Mm-hmm. So, Doc, we're running towards the end, and I know we just mentioned school. I think in the minute or two that we have left, we would love you just to speak directly to the parents that are going to be sending their kids out to school. I think it starts September 5th. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the next week or so, I know we want to be telling them to wear the mask, but just quickly a roundup to the parents, guidelines for their kids. What maybe you tell your kids. You take it away on that, Doc.
Great. Um, that's a very important message to disseminate against parents. Key is with polio, make sure your kids are well vaccinated.
Mhm.
Um, Teach them proper hygiene. If they're going to be in close contact with other kids and they're gonna, no problems playing with kids and interact as you are. Um, Masking in schools, I am in favor of it. A lot of folks might, I'm sure, has some issues with that or what have you, but it does protect against respiratory viruses and COVID is still in our communities. So I'm in favor of masking, but I'm sure not the entire population wants to wear a mask. If you're in an outdoor setting, you're better off. Indoors, closed space, definitely mask. I would recommend mask, if you will. And again, the most important thing also, in addition to all this, proper hygiene. Make sure your kids learn how to wash their hands as frequent as possible. Stay away from contaminated surfaces or folks whom you think may have something.
Great.
But don't be afraid to send your kids to school. Get them vaccinated.
Wonderful. David, you have 30 seconds. If there's anything you would like to say to our viewers today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being with us. It's a very, very interesting program. You know, I mean, and I do hope that you have learned something. I have
Yeah.
several of the misconceptions Doc has cleared up. So I do hope that the information that you, Dr. Somar, shared with us today, you share with your friends, particularly hygiene, particularly the myths about vaccines, particularly the myths about monkeypox and those things like that. You know what I mean? It is with us, but it's controllable and manageable once we do the right thing. So that's my take from tonight's program.
Yeah.
And for folks who may have questions that we didn't address, please, Kathy, I'm sure we have
Yes.
a portal to
Yeah.
receive them, and I'll respond as they come in.
Yep. Maybe on that point, I could say if there are any questions, if they hit up the AFC Facebook page and you pose your questions,
Yeah.
then we promise that we will pass it on to Doc and we will get some responses for you. So, viewers, ladies and gentlemen, children, teenagers, everybody that's been watching this program, it has been wonderful being with you tonight. Doc, thanks a lot for this invaluable information. And now we have the information. It's our responsibility to act on it, do
Yep.
the right thing, keep yourself safe, and most importantly, to share it. Good night, Burbies. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, David.
Oh,
Have a
my
good,
pleasure. Thank you, Doc.
safe,
Well done.
Great being
and
with you guys.
productive week.
We'll do it again
Goodbye.
soon. Take
Goodbye.
care.